Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and the iPhone 12 has been out for a little bit over 6 months or so, and this one has been in use full time. So I wanted to help you decide whether or not you should still pick one up, show you its overall durability, scratches, reception, battery life, camera, and more. And the first thing is its durability. Now this phone is in full-time use by my daughter, and she's pretty good at durability testing the phone as she drops it quite often. However, because it's had a case on it the entire time, it doesn't have a scratch on it as far as that goes. The case took all of the abuse, and the case is definitely worth getting if you have a child that's rough on phones, or maybe you are, and you'll see in the corner it's been dropped quite a few times, and this is just an Apple MagSafe case. So it's a leather case, it's held up well, and I've shown some cases in the past where she's rough on them, but it generally goes in a jean pocket and then she uses it full time. Now, other than that, the case has protected it well. So it has no scratches, no dents or anything all the way around the outside edge. And you'll probably want a case for the back anyway, since it's a fingerprint magnet. Now the front does have a screen protector on it, so it doesn't really have any scratches or anything. You can see the screen protector there, and it's held up well. Now with those drops, I've had to replace the screen protector a few times, and the display underneath is actually holding up really well because of that. So thankfully, to the ceramic shield, along with the screen protector, it's actually held up to different drops and things like that. I'm not someone that generally tends to drop my phone, but for some reason she does a lot, and if you do, this seems to hold up really, really well. Now, as far as the display, it's plenty bright in sunlight. In fact, we're outside right now. As you can see, the display brightness is all the way up, and it's doing okay. Now, it's not as bright as, say, the 12 Pro or the 12 Pro Max. Now, because this is a shaded area, it is a little bit easier to see the display. In super bright sunlight, it is a little bit challenging, but it's not too much different than, say, the 12 Pro or 12 Pro Max, even though it can go a bit brighter. But as far as using it, I've had no issues, despite it being a PWM controlled display as far as brightness. I've talked about this at length, where it actually flickers the display. All of the new iPhones have the Retina display, the Super Retina XDR, that will flicker to control brightness. And thankfully on the newer iPhones, it's not much of a problem at all. It doesn't really cause me eye strain or fatigue. There are a few people it still affects, but generally that's 1 in 10 people where it will affect them. And most of the time it won't bother most people, and it seems to be fine. However, I would love to see them shift away from that eventually if they could do something. I think they would tout it as a feature. Now this display is HDR, like I said, and that means you've got the option for 4K HDR videos on YouTube. So if we go and change the quality or the resolution on YouTube, you'll see we have the option for 2160p HDR. And that's on one of my videos on YouTube. In fact, this video is in HDR, as well as the video I'm showing here on the display. So let me go ahead and hit play. You'll see it's at 1200 nits. So I'm playing the video. It's nice and bright all the way at full brightness. And then it has great speakers as well. So let me turn this up here. And I absolutely love it. In fact, every time I pick it up, because of the squared off edges, it's super loud and has great stereo sound. So not only do you have the great HDR display, the speakers are holding up well. Maybe at the highest volume, you'll need to turn them down a little bit, since they sound a little bit muffled at that highest volume where they break up a little bit. But in general, they sound great. Now, as far as reception, this has 5G. It has the Qualcomm modem with millimeter wave. However, my carrier doesn't support millimeter wave, at least where I live. So if I go to speed test, I wanted to show you the different speeds here. We'll hit go. And with 2 bars or so of 5G, it's pretty good. However, 4G speeds when it comes to upload is usually about the same. Download is better at about 150 megabits per second with 2 bars. So it's pretty good coverage where I live as far as speed. We're actually hitting almost 170 megabits per second. And then with upload, we're hitting 7 to 8. Maybe 9 or 10, depending on upload speed. So it just depends. Sometimes it's a little bit lower, sometimes a little bit higher. We actually hit 13 megabits per second. So it's definitely usable as a hotspot, and you can use this as your main phone for this, and then maybe get an iPad with a hotspot or something like that. So no problems as far as that goes. Now, as far as overall battery life on this is actually pretty good. If I go to the battery life, and you'll see battery health after 6 months is 99%. In fact, I checked this morning, it was at 100. So after about 6 months of use, 99% is not bad. 80% after 2 years is normal. And this iPhone 12 is charged every single night via MagSafe. So no issues there. 99% is fine. It's plugged in at night, charged, and then sometimes charged when being driven around around, maybe in a car to listen to music and things like that. If we take a look at the last 10 days, yesterday we had 3 hours of screen on time, 7 hours and 29 minutes of screen off time, and used a little bit over 50%. That's actually quite good. We're getting about 6 hours of screen on time, including huge amounts of screen off time. The day before was a little bit less, 2.5 hours or so, and the day before was almost 3 hours. So average is about 6 to 6.5 hours of screen on time consistently since new, and it seems to be getting the exact same thing with this. Now, as far as software issues, well, so far it's been pretty good, but iOS 14 has had some bugs along the way we're all aware of, and 14.5 has been pretty good, although my daughter is having some issues with music using Siri, for example, not finding the actual music. So with 14.5, 14.5.1, it's pretty good, but still has a few bugs. This phone does not have any green tint, though. For those people with green tint, when you put the display all the way dark, maybe on settings, some people will see green tint. This phone's never seen it. I haven't seen it on any of mine, but I know some people are experiencing it. But with iOS 14.5, it fixed most of that. Now, as far as the cameras are concerned, well, as far as video goes, you're actually seeing video straight out of an iPhone 12 now in HDR. So I'm using the cameras out of a purple iPhone 12. And as you can see here, this is what it looks like. So I'm actually recording with this. I haven't adjusted settings. And if I record straight out of the iPhone 12, you can see what it looks like. Although I am using an external mic, it's a little bit windy, and so I've got the sound muffled because of that. But with the iPhone 12 microphone, it's not bad either. But with the rear-facing camera, I'm recording out of that, and you see the quality here. As far as photos, of course, it's great. There are great night photos as well, as you can see some of them here. And in general, it's a fantastic camera. You don't get 60 frames per second HDR, but that's fine, since YouTube doesn't really like 60 frames per second HDR or exporting it from Final Cut Pro, for example. It works better with 4K 30, for example, and that's what this camera records. So overall, the camera is fantastic. Now, should you still buy an iPhone 12? And I would say with all the current deals and maybe buy one, get one free, I would absolutely pick one up. However, if you could get a 12 Pro maybe for $50 more, then maybe I would go that route. However, this camera is just great. And it's got the same processor, just a little bit less RAM than you get with the other version. So with the 12 Pro, for example, so you have 4 gigs versus 6 gigs. It doesn't seem to make a difference, and it always feels fast. No issues here whatsoever. It's just super fast all the time. No problems with it whatsoever. And it will continue to get updates for years to come. Probably 5 to 6 years from now, we'll still be getting iOS updates up to iOS 19 maybe at this point, if it's still even called iOS at that point. iPhone OS or whatever Apple decides to call it. So yes, I highly recommend this. I definitely would pick one up still, and it's one of my favorite designs. I love the overall feel of it, the squared off edges. Whether or not you like that, I think it helps holding on to it. And in general, it's a highly recommendable phone, in my opinion. This is the phone I generally recommend to most people. This or the 12 Pro if they really want that extra telephoto lens. But generally, when zooming in, I don't think that's much of an issue since it uses digital zoom and bright light anyway. So most of the time, I recommend the iPhone 12, especially with all the deals out there with trade-ins and more. Let me know what you think of iPhone 12 in the comments below. If you have one, if you've picked up a 12 Pro or 12 Mini or 12 Pro Max, I'd love to hear from you as well. If you'd like to get your hands on this wallpaper, of course, I'll link it in the description like I normally do. And if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.